You may not like this, but I will say it. If you are experiencing constant pain and setbacks, your body is not the problem. This is my story for you. From constant pain and injuries to peak performance. Have you ever felt like your body is not cooperating? Like you do everything right, but progress is slow and inconsistent. And when you finally start feeling stronger, it just slips away. Tightness comes back, and that old injury starts bothering you again. And you begin to wonder, what's wrong with me? I know. I remember that feeling very well because for a while I wondered the same. I thought I would be fine by simply following the conventional advice. Train hard, playing harder, and so on. Right? Wrong. The conventional advice just does not work for most people looking to perform well. So if you ever feel like your body is holding you back and nothing that you do helps you solve this problem once and for all, this video is for you. 9 years ago, a series of injuries forced me to rethink my approach and ultimately led to the deepest transformation I've experienced. I was playing football or soccer in North America on a semi-professional level, but at some point my body just could not keep up. My shoulder was a mess, I nearly tore my left hamstring, and eventually I needed surgery to repair my right foot and ankle. But little did I know, the surgery was just the tip of the iceberg. In the process of completely rebuilding myself, I realized my body is not the problem. And you may not like this, but I will say it. If you are experiencing constant pain and setbacks, your body is not the problem. This is the way the body communicates with us. If there are any persistent issues, 99% of the time, the problem is how we use it. It's not the body itself. I eventually started listening to my body and understood the message. I have to change. So I studied for thousands of hours the approach utilized by the top athletes in the world and their coaches. The legends of NBA basketball, Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, they both actually worked with the same personal trainer, Tim Grover. If you've watched the Netflix documentary about Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, The Last Dance, you've seen Tim Grover over there. In the other videos on my channel, you can learn everything about my system that gets you from stuck and in pain to prime shape and performance. It's called the Rewire Method, and it's based on the science behind the approach used in professional sports. And in this video, I will take you through my journey. Later on, as I was getting certified, I added the yoga and physiotherapy layers to my system. It helped me rebuild my body and mind from scratch to feel stronger and more capable than ever. And I hope that if you are on the same journey or experiencing similar challenges, this can help you do the same. So let me share with you a little bit about my career built around professional sports. It's been 17 years since I started. I was 18 years old when I started as a sports journalist. Eventually, I got an international accreditation and I got to cover the Football World Cup or soccer 2014 in Brazil. That was a really important moment for me because I started realizing better many things about professional athletes' lifestyle, how they train, how they eat, how they interact with their teams, and so on. I spent 6 years as a sports journalist, but then I transitioned to be a sports trader in the sports betting industry. Something that is really important about that is that, a lot of people called the sports trading position a bookmaker. So essentially, we take the money that people bet. We receive the bets, we are dealing with the probabilities for events to happen or not to happen. It's quite important to understand that when we work with professional sports and athletes, like for example, let's say you watch NBA basketball, you can bet on LeBron James' performance, you can bet on how many points he's gonna score, under or over 25 points. you can bet on his rebounds, his assists, and so on. I was really motivated to do well in this sports trading career, and I realized that if I want to do that, I have to understand player performance. And there are so many things that affect player performance, right? But obviously the main thing is the health of the players and injuries. So for us as traders, was really important to understand, hey, is this player going to play or not play? Obviously, this is important. But then there are nuances, like, did this guy play a lot of minutes? Is he tired? Did he have like a minor type of injury last game and so on? In the sports trading career, it's important to understand these things because you're either going to take money on one side or the other side. And then you set your betting line based on your knowledge and obviously on the market. So understanding the player performance was super important. At some point we had to even understand certain like injuries and fractures, like fifth metatarsal or first metatarsal or Lisfranc surgery or Tommy John surgery and so on. Short term, we had to understand whether a player was in a good state to play and would be able to play at his highest, so at his best performance. But long term, we also had to understand, hey, this guy had like a surgery of his hamstring or his knee, whatever. And we had to understand, is he going to recover on time for, let's say, the playoffs or the knockout stage, so on. And this was important because this can make a difference. If this is a superstar player, this can make the difference for his team winning a championship or a title or some important game. And it's a matter of a lot of money. If you follow sports and if you follow, even if you place some bets sometimes, but if you don't, this is an industry for billions and billions and billions every year. And it's incredibly important to be, as a trader, to be informed and to understand all these different nuances. What happened with me when I played football in the lower divisions when I was living in Malta is, at some point after age 26, I started experiencing certain injuries that I had never experienced before. The first injury was, I had a hamstring injury on the left side. It was a grade 4 injury, almost completely tearing my hamstring. And this was kind of the first sign for me that I needed to learn, I needed to study, I needed to improve my approach, because if I was getting injured like that, I knew something was wrong. Eventually, from that point, I realized that it's really important to build the body in a balanced way. Then in the same year, in 2016, I read an article about Steph Curry. So if you, again, going to the NBA basketball, if you know who Steph Curry is, you know a little bit of his story. But if you don't, Steph Curry is one of the best NBA players to ever live. He is considered to be the best shooter of all time. And something that few people know is his journey from being basically written out of the league to becoming one of the best players in history. They used to call him the boy with the glass ankles because he was getting injured his ankles every several games. So in 2016, this article came out on ESPN. It was called "Steph Curry has the best worst ankles in sports." Incredible piece. I will add the link below the video if you want to check it out. Great piece of information. Reading this made me realize that he had gone from a player that had no future. The problems that he was experiencing with his ankles at some point turned out to be related to the previous injuries and not fully recovering from that. But not in terms of having weakness in the ankles, but in terms of having a lot of scar tissue. Because when we experience damage in the body, structural damage of tissues like ligaments and muscles, when the body starts healing itself, the tissue that it creates, the new tissue, is different than the old one. And this tissue actually has to be cleared away to restore the normal range of motion and flexibility in these joints and body parts to be able to come back to normal activity, okay? So what Steph Curry was dealing with was a bunch of scar tissue in his ankles, and they realized at some point that when they removed that, it would be much easier for him to heal and come back to normal performance. But that was just part of the story. The other part of the story is even more important. Steph Curry is a very smart athlete, so he decided to study, hey, like, why am I getting injured? And then he realized that he wasn't placing enough focus on training his hips and his legs overall. Because if you think about getting injuries in the ankles, this is because they often have to carry too much weight if the muscles, the structures above the ankles are not carrying that weight for them, right? So if we put more muscles in the hips, in the quads, around the hamstrings, around the calves, there will be less load for the ankles to carry and eventually getting injured. So what Steph Curry did was entirely change the way he was training, focusing more on his legs, focusing more on his hips. This was an eye-opener for me. I realized, hey, this is part of what I'm doing wrong. And then I continued to study even more, even deeper with specifically the NBA athletes, because the media coverage is so amazing that you can learn everything. You can learn about the exercises they do, you can learn what they eat, you can learn how they recover, you can learn who are their coaches, and so on and so on. And now regarding the coaches, this is something super important, again, for people that have an idea of the NBA league as a whole. It will be easier to understand, but I will try to explain the best way possible, even for those that are not familiar with NBA basketball. So Michael Jordan, you probably know him, the best player to ever play the game. He had a personal trainer called Tim Grover throughout his entire career. He was working with the same personal trainer. Tim Grover later also worked with Kobe Bryant and Dwayne Wade, another two legends of the game who won championships. And then Tim Grover also was one of the first people to introduce a person called Mike Mancias into the league. Mike Mancias is the first and only personal trainer of LeBron James, another superstar in the league, still playing even today at age 40. And Mike Mancias actually was an intern of Tim Grover when he was still coaching Michael Jordan when Jordan was with the Wizards. So Grover passed on the knowledge to Mike Mancias that, of course, he added his own twist and he's been doing different things with LeBron James, but you'd have to understand in the NBA, it's like a brotherhood. They know each other and they pass on, knowledge and experience and so on. Why is this important to understand? Well, because in the 90s, media was so obsessed, so crazy about Michael Jordan as a whole and his performance and how he was able to be in this physical shape to perform so well, that they were pushing Jordan to share about his training methods. And Jordan went to his personal trainer, Tim Grover, and said, hey, can you write something for the media so we can give it to them and we can share a little bit of the training methods that we use. By the way, there is something interesting that you probably want to know if you're curious about that Jordan and Tim Grover relationship. Jordan said about Tim Grover, I do not pay Grover to train me. I pay him not to train anyone else. So imagine how essential was him for his career and his performance. So Tim Grover published a book, and this book called The Jump Attack was published in the 90s, and then at some point it disappeared. It wasn't available anymore because it was never published again. Tim Grover at some point realized that someone told him, hey, like your book is not available anymore, but there are a lot of people out there that want to buy it. And they added another edition and they made it available for the public. And that's how I got this book. And this book changed my life forever. Because Grover doesn't care about explaining why certain exercises work the way they work, but he gives the entire program. And I was doing this program before I had an ankle surgery, after I had an ankle surgery. It's the thing that really helped me transform my body most than anything else. I reduced my body fat like a professional athlete to level below 10%. And just my lean muscle became even so much more functional and visible that when I came back to play after the surgery, I was like a completely different player. I've been using these exercises to heal myself between 2017, 2020. I mentioned that I had an ankle injury that eventually needed surgery to fix, right? So what happened with my ankle was I had maybe you can see there is a small scar here. By the way, the surgeon made an amazing job. I'm really grateful for that. But essentially the surgery that I had was because here inside the ankle joint, I had about 1 centimeter of a lesion. Like this is a piece of dead tissue, like cartilage and bone in a small kind of ball together, like a pearl inside the joint. And the problem was that this wasn't allowing the ankle to heal completely, and it was causing a lot of inflammation. So by the time I had surgery, my ankle was like 3 times bigger. Right ankle was 3 times bigger than the left ankle. But you know, just following the conventional advice, no pain, no gain, train hard and so on, I never stopped playing for a long time, and I just didn't take care of that until I needed the surgery. But what happened was, actually in the next couple months as I was recovering, it turned out that the surgery was more of a cosmetic change for me because I had a bigger problem. What the MRI showed was that my bigger problem was I had a broken bone in two. This ankle bone, the lateral ankle bone, was broken in two, and there was like a little piece of that small bone that was attached to the ligaments that are here, but it wasn't attached to the bone, the fibula bone. The lower leg of the body has 2 different bones, the tibia, which is the big bone here, and then the fibula, which is a smaller bone on the outside here, okay? And so what was happening for me with this injury was that because this piece of the bone wasn't attached to the ligaments here, the fibula, the small bone of the lower leg, was sliding down, was moving literally down, and this was causing my ankle to be completely immobile. So if you can see, like this movement that I'm doing now, this, I couldn't move at all. When I was trying to move, I couldn't at all because this bone was sliding down and it was blocking the way, right? And obviously if you want to play football or basketball or anything to perform, this is a problem, right? And at the time there was no technology that was helpful to actually help me fix that. There was no technology that was going to be able to put this little bone closer to the other bone and then calcify, help them connect together. And the surgery was too complicated. And since I wasn't a professional athlete, I didn't want to do another surgery after doing a surgery here and then another one here, right? And this is where I will come back to the training methods used by Tim Grover and these guys in the NBA. What happened is that these methods, the combination of static holds with very slow and controlled repetitions, they prime the nervous system and they unlock the body's abilities to heal itself. So a lot of people in this space that have gone through a similar journey, they realize that the human body has absolutely amazing capabilities to heal itself only if we allow it to, if we create the space, create the conditions for it to heal, right? So I decided not to have this surgery. At the time, I was also recommended to have a surgery on my shoulder. This is really tricky, so I decided to just go with the holistic method and try to fix things on my own, but with this new knowledge. So these exercises that I have been doing with Tim Grover, but at the time I got additional certification as a coach, as a yoga teacher. I added like a physiotherapy layer and yoga layer of these exercises. For example, if you ever buy the book, I highly recommend, but the actual training sessions are really, really, really difficult. They're for like, almost like professional athletes, but they do everything with sneakers, like outdoors. What I did was I decided to do everything barefoot, because this really allows the body to find the weakest links in the feet, in the ankles, in the knees, in the hips, and then the body actually heals them. So in the space of maybe less than 2 years, maybe around a year and a half, just by doing these exercises and by obviously, prioritizing sleep, eating well, my body healed itself. These two bones connected, and I didn't have to do anything else for that. Why is this important? Well, because in 2020, as you probably remember, the pandemic hit. And when that happened, a lot of people had difficult time to stay in shape, mentally, physically, any way possible, right? You probably remember when the pandemic started, when everyone was stuck at home, no access to the gym, and not spending a lot of time outdoors. People were really struggling to stay in shape, physically, mentally, any way you can think. And at that time, I was just at the end of my journey in terms of healing, and I was in top shape, playing regularly and just enjoying all sorts of movement, enjoying life where I was living in Malta. Friends and acquaintances and colleagues of mine came to me and said, hey, I'm really struggling to stay in shape. Maybe you can help me. If we have a video call, you can share your exercises with me. So I started doing that, but I wasn't sure if this would really work for other people, because I knew that it worked for me. I knew that it was like a miracle for me. It completely transformed my life, but I had never tested it on other people. And what happened eventually is I started seeing great results with other people. I had friends that came to me injured, like not being able to walk, with herniated disc, slipped disc in the lower back, all sorts of problems in the feet and so on. When these guys came to me, it was really going to be a proper test for the whole methodology that I had already developed for myself. I had used the Tim Grover exercises as the foundation, but then I had developed something unique already in 2020, 2021. And we started doing these exercises, and I have a really close friend of mine playing futsal, indoors football, as a semi-professional, and he wasn't able to walk at the beginning. He had 2 weeks to prepare for a training camp with the national team. He came to me completely desperate, and he was like, I need your help. I don't know what to do. I'm barely able to walk. And we started using my methodology, and we got him in a decent shape within 2 weeks only to prepare for the training camp. And then when he came back, he was like, hey, I really need you to help me with this, but this time more of a longer term. So to do the whole program, which, there is a core piece of the program, which is called Fire Core. And then there is a legs piece of the program, which is called Fire Legs. And in between, there are certain yoga sessions and warm-up sessions that I give to people to help them maintain the training, because the way the programs are designed, training only happens twice a week. I know it may sound weird, but it only happens twice a week because the training sessions are so focused, so targeted, and yes, they're also challenging, that you don't need more than that. Training just twice a week is more than enough to stay in shape and perform at a high level. So what happened from then on is I started working with more and more people. I started applying the same principles, really, really minor adjustments here and there based on their feedback, based on my observations and so on. And I realized, wow, this is gold. This actually works for everyone, not just for me. So now, guys, I gave you kind of a good overview in terms of the whole journey of my personal journey, understanding the methods behind these professional athletes and their coaches at the highest level. It really was incredibly transformational for me. If you are experiencing anything similar, it will make a massive difference for you. I'm more than certain in that. It took about 2 years, maybe 2 years and a half to crystallize the whole methodology, because like I mentioned, there is a core aspect, fire core, because always the first and most important thing when athletes do in terms of high performance before games, even if you watch how they warm up before games, is to activate the core muscles, because the core is the center of the body. And if this is weak, then it doesn't matter how strong are your arms or your lower legs, because this is the connection between the lower body and the upper body. If this is weak, you can never avoid injuries in the long run. So there is the core aspect. This is 6 training sessions within a couple weeks. And then there is the legs aspect as well. Again, 6 training sessions within a couple weeks. Usually offering these together, but if people come to me and they want to take just one separate segment of them, we can figure out. And I also added like a physiotherapy and yoga aspect to the entire methodology, which is something that was completely missing, and this is my kind of contribution to making the method completely unique. So the Rewire Method now is safe and simple way to get strong, to prime your nervous system, to burn fat, and to prepare to play at a really high level. For today, this is it from me. I gave you a really good overview of the entire journey and why and how I developed the methodology that I developed. If you want to learn more about the actual steps, about the actual keys in the Rewire Method, you can watch the other videos on my channel. They're a little bit shorter than this one, so it will be much easier for you. I also want to say, if you are really curious to learn more of how this is being applied one-on-one, and of course if you're recovering from an injury or if you're preparing for a competition or a challenge, please DM me the word journey on Instagram. I will leave the link below this video. All right, I will be super excited to connect with you, understand your context, and see if I can help you. If you found this useful, please hit like, share it with someone who may need it, and of course subscribe to my channel. I'm Pavel. Thank you for watching this video. If you need me, you know where to find me.